Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating academic study about something that touches literally all of us, childhood trauma. We usually hear about how early trauma damages us biologically, right? But what if that exact same science could be used as a tool for widespread systemic healing? Let's explore how institutions are actually using biology to fundamentally reshape our society.
Let's kick things off with a real, incredibly frustrated voice of an educator who's just struggling to understand their students. Kids were literally running out of classrooms, running right off the school grounds. Traditional discipline simply wasn't working anymore. Teachers felt like they were completely missing something fundamental, like they just weren't cracking the code of what was triggering their students.
Which naturally leads us to a pretty big question. How can biological research provide the key to actually helping these kids, rather than just punishing them? I mean, when the old rules of detention and suspension completely fail our communities, where do frontline workers even turn? To figure this out, we're looking at a peer-reviewed paper published in Science, Technology, and Human Values by researchers Ruth Müller and Kenney. They went straight into the field in the U.S. Pacific Northwest to see exactly how professionals are actively using biology to transform their communities.
So, let's start with the biology of adversity.
Biological research traditionally looks at how negative social experiences early in life, often called ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, leave lasting impacts. This research traces how these really difficult early events echo throughout a person's entire life course, affecting everything from brain development all the way to long-term health.
But there's a problem with determinism.
Here's where we hit a massive roadblock. The dominant narrative often focuses almost exclusively on irreversible damage, painting this really bleak picture of biological doom. Plus, researchers point out that this framing places the blame entirely on individual parents, especially mothers. It totally aligns with a societal focus on individual responsibility, while routinely ignoring the broader systemic inequalities like poverty that actually caused the adversity in the first place. We're witnessing a fascinating paradigm shift here. On one side, you have the old, dominant narrative, deterministic doom, individual blame, and harsh, punitive discipline. But on the other side, we are seeing an emergent narrative of hope. Professionals are taking that exact same biological data and using it to advocate for reversibility, to highlight systemic issues, and push for trauma-informed care.
Which brings us to a trauma-informed approach.
In places like Walla Walla, Washington, this shift relies heavily on trauma-informed care. This basically means designing entire systems to explicitly accommodate trauma survivors' needs. Instead of looking at a student acting out and asking, "What is wrong with you?" a trauma-informed system asks, "What happened to you?" It's all about ensuring our institutions support healing rather than causing further harm.
Now, let's look at restorative justice in action.
Restorative justice is a vital piece of this whole puzzle. It shifts the focus completely away from punitive discipline, things like suspending a student or putting a youth in solitary confinement. Instead, it focuses heavily on practices that repair social relations. It's about building community circles and fostering real accountability through connection, rather than isolation.
In the biology acts as the catalyst for all of this. Listen to this quote from a restorative justice facilitator. They explained that understanding the biology of trauma gives frontline workers the biological why behind the behaviors they're seeing. When you realize a child's brain has literally been rewired by trauma to stay on high alert, community-building circles suddenly make total scientific sense. It replaces judgment with deep empathy.
And this knowledge isn't just locked away at the staff level either. It's being taught directly to the youth. By giving young people the vocabulary to understand their own bodies, they're empowered to monitor their own biological signs. Noticing a spiked heart rate allows them to step away, take a breath, and self-regulate before a situation escalates. It literally gives them agency over their own biology.
Institutional changes go even further. In one juvenile corrections facility, staff realized that the loud banging of a heavy metal door was biologically triggering trauma and intense anxiety in the youth. Rather than punishing the kids for reacting poorly, the staff recognized the biological response for what it was. So, they adapted the environment itself. The institution changed its behavior rather than demanding the traumatized youth change theirs. That's a huge shift.
This all builds toward achieving biopsychosocial healing.
These real-world applications show us something crucial. Scientific narratives aren't inherently oppressive or liberatory. Their impact depends entirely on how we use them. First, we recognize the biology of trauma. Second, we shift from blame to asking why. Third, we replace punishment with restorative practices. And ultimately, this facilitates true biosocial healing, meaning we aren't just healing the individual's physical biology, we're actually repairing the social fabric of the community around them.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If our biology truly reflects our social world, if our cells and nervous systems are literally keeping score of our environments, how can we redesign our own institutions to nurture resilience rather than reinforce trauma? It's a challenge to all of us to look at the systems we operate in every single day and ask how we can make them instruments of healing. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.